is 7:24 a.m. and I'm starting recording. No one else is here in the room, so I'm only starting this for the people who are watching the video. Once again, because it's early, you're going to want to skip ahead, but before you do, because you are not present physically or online and you're watching the video, you do have an extra word to do. So your first word for attendance is going to be bookworm. So I need you to take a screenshot right now. So when I look and you send me the words, it'll say bookworm, but I'll also see a picture of the blue screen that says Sanyo. Anyway, as I did last time in the last video, and I can just hint to that every time I say a word, you're going to need to write it down and take a screenshot of when I say that word. And then when the video is over, you're going to email me that list of words and also the screenshots of when I said those words to prove that you're paying attention to the video. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm going to mention this at the end, but just so you know, another change that I'm implementing today is in addition to the words, you need just one question about any of the material I covered in this video. So, as you're watching the video, you might have a little something to write something down with. Hopefully you already do to write down the attendance words, but as I'm going through that, just come up with a question. Even if you think you understood everything, come up with a question anyway, just to make sure you understood it. Or, for example, if you just really, really understood everything because it seemed really simple, let me rephrase it and it'll get the same results, but write down a question that I could use on a quiz for the material that I just covered in this video. But anyway, that's it. At this point, it is now 7:26 a.m., so you can go ahead and skip ahead, about 30 minutes, a little bit more than that, and we should be starting. Morning. Morning. I'll be with you in a second. Like some people messed up some of these settings. Oh my God, I hate when they do this. Just leave it alone. That smells great. Yep. So now that they've screwed with it, I've got displays on one end. It needs to be on the other. Let's see. I bet I wouldn't on that one. Swear. This is what irritates me about people in general. It's no common courtesy. If you adjust something, adjust it back.
I completely understand. What's going on? Are you trying to?
Well, I have it set up, or usually it's set up to where when you open something, this is the main screen. And then if you display something, like if I'm got the PowerPoint and I'm in charge of it here, it's displaying it over there.
So you're trying to have two monitors?
Yeah, which I just did previously, but when it did it, it had that one as the main monitor. So now I think I may have fixed it. We shall see. Changes. Okay. Now that can be good to be fantastic. Takes from two. It's random, right?
Yes.
Sure. Today, but change it up. Today you get ranked 0.3 extra points for being the first one here.
Nice.
Okay. Any plans for the weekend?
Not really. Everything is either boring.
What's that?
Everything is either boring. I guess fixing my job schedule, what I eat and stuff like that. It's I guess something I gotta do.
Yeah. Oh, you piece of garbage. Sure. In these displays, do they not understand?
Keep change.
Yeah. Mouse over there. There you go. Now,
Identify that's one.
see, I don't want that to be one, so I'm gonna just do that. If I'm in, no, I want you to be two.
Great spot.
No, I want you to be two. Like, see what I mean? If people would just stop screwing with stuff.
Wait,
Well,
look at the bottom where it says, this is my main display.
oh, yeah. Wait, whoops. Good call. I don't want to do that. But I do need to do that over here.
And click ident.
But I think you're onto something. Now. Yeah, look, oh, who would even give me that? There we go, there we go. There we go. Now we're talking. I think we did it. Thanks.
Try it. Expectations. Save that.
All right, we'll call it two. Sure, whatever this is, make it my main display. Even if it's number two. All right, here's the test. It'll PowerPoint test.
Perfect. Slide. Roulette.
Hey, got it. Shoot. Thanks. It's just annoying, you know? And luckily I get to work early, but if I was here at, here at 7:55, like, all right, let's get to work. That would be troublesome. Okay. Yep. What's today? 22nd? 3/24. 5, 6, or 7. So you've got a computer. Since no one else is here, you feel free to tell me no. I still need a volunteer for somebody. You can just sit right there. And you know how well, you might not know, but anyway, I'm streaming this. I just need you or whoever the volunteer is to log in. So you're streaming along with us.
Mhm.
And then share your screen. And I'm going to show everybody, like, here's where you find the pre-lab. Here's how you make yourself a copy of the pre-lab. Here's what you need to fill out. Here's how you download it. Here's how you upload it. And I need a student to demonstrate that, because if I do it, it looks different, because it shows, everything looks different for the professor. So is there any chance you can do that for 10 points of extra credit? Because
I can just give you like the details to log in and do it. Would that work? Or
no, I need to show, I need to demonstrate. So I need somebody to actually, I need to verbally walk them through it, and then they do it on their computer, so it's shown to everybody else. But if you can't do it, I get it. Another thing that stinks about that is, when you're gonna have to download the file after you're done with it, and then upload it to WBSU. In the process of doing that, then everybody sees what's on your screen. So whatever you have on your hard drive, it's gonna show up. You know what I mean? Like if you've got bank statements or anything like that, everyone's gonna see it. That is the downside.
yeah.
Okay, speed preview first. Most of the time.
That's what we got. Valuable.
It's up to you. And if you want, if you, I don't know, just let me know if you want to do it or not, and I can show you how to get online with us. Discussion, meet.
Now you're connected on the iPad.
Are you not?
So all you're doing is basically connecting that to here.
Hold on, I'll show you. Basically what you're doing is connecting to the link I just sent you. Did it work? Yeah, let me know. It should have sent you a link. You didn't get it yet?
My application is still loading.
Oh, okay. Still not working for you?
Yeah, the game. I just gotta get into Gmails and I'm about to click the link here soon. And load on my own hotspot. This is so slow.
Well, there's I'm just pulled up an old email I found. Okay. Please inform everyone that in Hamlin Hall, know that the Wi-Fi conversion in this building has been completed. Well. And now I can't. Great. But anyway, yeah, I don't remember the particular details. The login. If you try to log into the WVSU Wi-Fi, I think is the network name, it should bring up, almost like you're at a hotel, bring up a web browser where you have to input your password.
Yeah, for the guests.
Yeah, well, it should be as a guest, but yeah.
I thought there was like something you had to sign for that one. Was it not?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the thing online is basically like, yeah, you can put in your login credentials, but it also you have to click something that says something like you agreed to the rules and stuff. Hey, there we go. You're on. All right. So if you can do it, here's how you would do it. Do you want to bring it up here? So, all right, I'll do you. Never mind. All right, what you'll do. Let's go to the bottom. There's a little box with an arrow pointing up. Yep.
Click something.
Yeah, it'll have a pop-up window, there you go, and then the entire screen. And then click that preview, there you go, and now hit share. Awesome, so now, let me take this down to make sure that we can see it over here. No, we can't yet. Hold on. Oops. Okay. Getting there. We're getting somewhere here. Very good. See, I'm glad you came in here early so we could get things set up and ready to go for when the time comes. Yes. All right. So when the time comes, we've already said what I'll do is, since no one had seen this before, I'll have you start from the beginning because you already started this process, right? Yeah, if I remember correctly from the emails yesterday. Yeah, exactly. So we'll do that. when the time comes, not yet, and we're gonna pretend like you've never done this before, and you haven't even got started, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna walk you through it, like, here's where you find it. Here's how you open it, here's how you make yourself a copy and all that, okay? All right, thanks. Let's see. Thought I had a full screen, that's not, that'd be a way to make it better.
If you go down to the main screen, there, you see that, that.
Yeah, it's already says it's full screen, but that's what you're talking about. I mean, this will work, but you know, it'd be better if it was. Don't think that'll work. Let's see. No. Morning, everybody. Okay. It's as good as it gets.
What happens if you hit the expand button beside your name? Right down at the bottom.
Yeah, there's my file back.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna make it. So as a reminder, as I get people talking about it, today, like I've been saying all week, today I'm gonna show you guys how to do the feedback. So if anybody's stressing over it, no need to stress over it, that's what I was telling you.
I was stressing last night.
That's what I was saying,
I can't get it to, I was more stressed. I still think I didn't get it done, but the fact that I couldn't make that PDF.
that's what I'm gonna show you how to do today. So hopefully everybody brought the devices, if not, that's okay, this is getting recorded. You have a volunteer, one of your classmates is gonna show you how to do it. I'm gonna walk them through. So speaking of which, let's see. Since you all have your devices, even though it's up here, you think? If you want to also join the call, even though you're physically here, you can at least get better on, no, that won't work, because then you have to use your screen. Never mind, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, this will work. So you might have anything fun planned for the weekend? No, what was it? Sleep. Sleep? Oh, that does sound like fun. I'm rather doing that. My kids don't let it happen. All summer long, when they could sleep in, like over the weekends, they don't. But you gotta get up for camp. I do sleep in.
Continue to.
All right. Let's see here. Brumfeld here yet? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Champion. Yep. Gorby. No Gorby yet. Oh, by the way, too, if you're online with us, because there are some other ones online, technically for now you're not present. So when you hear me call your name, don't feel like you need to get my attention. Like I'm online. You don't worry about it. If you're online, you're just gonna have to send in the attendance words. So until then, you're just considered absent. So don't stress about it. Anyway, Gross. Not here. Gunther.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wait, back there. Right. Yep. Gunther is here. Hill. Oh yeah, both Hills are here. Jackson. Jackson's here. All right. Jackson, don't forget to get your help for the first two videos. If you need my help on where to find them, what you need to do, just come to me after class for all the steps. Gracie is here. McCray. Maybe okay. Is that offensive if I only use one of the last two names?
No,
If I
just
shorten
one.
it?
I don't like when people use this whole name.
What's
Like
that?
we only use one of them.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know why they write both.
That's Sigmund. Where? Okay. It's so dark. It'll only get worse throughout the year. Then when I see you guys in the daylight, I'm like, what are you again? Turn off the lights. Very nice. Slaughter. Yep, is here. Smith. Is here. Stover. Here. Tompkins is here. It's a great turnout. Tomasic. Modest is here. Watson. No Watson yet. Williams. Young.
Here.
Okay, see you. Schweibeck. No, not yet. Lawrence. Is here. That's it for now. I'll start from the top. Just have 3 minutes. 2 minutes and some change. Gorby. Gorby. Gross. McCray. Tomasic. Watson. Just came in, right? Yep. Andrew Watson's here. Williams. Zweibeck. So that should mean that everyone here has been accounted for, right? All right. Like I said, we still have 3 minutes, but I'll use some time to remind you of some stuff. The pre-lab is due today, technically, right? Because pre-labs are always technically due on a Friday. But at the beginning of this lecture, I'm going to show you how to do a pre-lab. So since I'm just now doing it, I'm going to extend the due date for the pre-lab to Sunday. Now, please don't wait till Sunday, because that could, if you turn it in today and you make mistakes, then you have more time to fix it. But technically, you have until Sunday to turn it in. I'm not going to change due dates in WBSU Online, so it's still going to show you that today's the due date. But unofficially, I'm telling you, I'm not going to keep you out of lab or deduct any points if it's turned in, as long as it's turned in before Sunday. Another thing I'm changing, and I just decided this last night, it's going to be a really busy semester. So you guys have the discussions, first week of which the first one is due technically this Sunday, like your first initial discussion. But I've decided this semester that's going to be extra credit. So do as much as you want, do as little as you want. And at the very end, it's not going to show as extra credit throughout the semester. Like it's going to affect your grade throughout the semester because it's all in the system that way. But at the end of it, what I'll do is I'll look at your grade and I'll do some mathematical magic and I'll see what your grade is as if, what your current grade is and what your grade would be if that assignment didn't exist. And whichever one is higher is the one I'm going to go with. So if you do the discussion, that's a good bit of points. If you do the discussion, and get full credit every 2 weeks, because it's a 2-week assignment, then it's really gonna help your grade. But if you're just too busy and you can't do it, whatever, I'm gonna be lenient on that this year. Because it really does take a lot for me to grade those things. If you've ever had any of my online classes, actually, have any of you had me before for another class? No? Okay, well, anyway, I'm really, really picky with discussions because I can't stand it when people cheat and say AI. So it's a lot of work for me to make sure they're not using AI. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing with discussions. Technically, since it's extra credit now, I keep saying technically the due date is Sunday, and I guess it is, but who really cares if it's extra credit, right? I'm gonna say this though, because of the due dates, let me say this. If you wait until the end of the semester, I'm like, you know what? I do want to do those discussions. I'm gonna do them all this weekend. I guess you could try, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you now, just to keep it official. Anything past the due date, I'm gonna say I officially might not grade it. How about that? Just in case, because like you all wait until the last weekend and turn in all your discussions at once, there's no way I'll be able to grade it. So I'm telling you now, discussions are extra credit, and yeah, if it's past the due date, I'll still take it, but I won't promise that I'll grade it. That make sense? All right. I think that's the only big updates. I've got a whole slide of updates. But before we do that, it's 8 o'clock, so we'll get started. Everybody's been accounted for attendance. Speaking of attendance, we're gonna do like we usually do. For those of you who are here, you can write down these attendance words or phrases if you want to for extra credit and send them in for 9 a.m. If you're online right now with us, you have to write down the attendance words and send them in before 9 a.m. to get your points. And if you're watching the video at a later date, not only do you need to send in the words, but you need to take a screenshot every time I say one of the words. So the first word for attendance is going to be hill, right there. So if you're watching the video, so nobody watching right now, if you're watching the video, you need a screenshot, you point at the word hill. The rest of you, that's a great word. Yeah, I know at least 2 hills who would like it. So yeah, that's the first word. And another thing I'm gonna do different today is the last word for attendance. And again, for you guys, this is all extra credit, so if you don't do this, that's okay. But if you're online or watching the video, the last word for attendance is not gonna be a word at all. You're gonna write a question. One question about all the information I presented in today's video. So or today's lecture. Even if you think you understood it, come up with a question, like to make sure you understood it. Or maybe you're writing a quiz question that I could use based on the information from today. So anyway, any questions so far about anything? All right. Let's jump into this. Let me show you how to do a pre-lab. Mr. Hill has volunteered to help us. He's actually started and done a lot of the stuff I'm about to show him how to do, but we're going to pretend like he's never seen this before. So the first thing to do is to find where the lab is, right? So Randall, can you go down to Module 1 Lab? You can see right there is where it is. You just click on that, and it brings you to the submission page.
Right here.
Yep, so you do that. All right. Now, before you do anything, I just want to show you guys. So this is where you find information about labs, when they're due. If you scroll down, Randall, you can show them all these. There's some videos, some tutorials that can show you a few things. So even though I'm teaching you how to do this now, you can watch those videos later if you want. So now, Randall, if you can scroll back up to the top. So now for every lab, what I have is a master copy. So if you click on that, please. That is the master copy. This is my copy. I'm the only one who has access to edit it. So you have to make yourself a copy. So to do that, you're going to go over here to File. Oh, wait, before I get into that. Everything I'm about to teach you, the instructions on how to make yourself a file are right here at the top of every document, every lab document we do this week, this semester. So if you ever forget, you got it right there. Now, make yourself a copy, right? So you can go to File, up here, make a copy. Now, sometimes it'll give you choices. It didn't this time, but sometimes it'll give you choices like copy comments and stuff like that. If it does, do that, but this is fine. Name it whatever you want and then hit make a copy. Good. Now, once you do this, this is your copy. This is what you're going to fill out for the pre-lab. This is also what you're going to fill out afterwards, next week, like the lab. It's all on one worksheet. And some other things I want to point out. I do this on purpose. It's on Google Docs because once you make yourself a copy, it is then in your Google Drive. And if you want to know where to find that, I'll explain it later. But your Google Drive is accessible from any device. So if you start your work at home on a computer and then you forgot your computer and you're at school, you can just go to the library, open up a computer, log into your WVSU account, and then you have access to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right, so he's made himself a copy. This is it. This is all he needs for lab 1. He never needs to make another copy. He has this, it's in his Google Drive, so he's gonna do the pre-lab right now. So we know it's really hard to read, but hopefully you guys should be following along. Hopefully by this point, you've made yourself a copy and now you're looking at your copy. Now you can read this on your own screen. There's a lot of stuff, and I apologize, but it's the first lab. So the first lab is gonna have the lab syllabus that we've gotta talk about. The first lab is gonna teach you basically how to do experiments in general. The first lab is gonna teach you how to do graphing. So it's really long, but not to worry. It's because it's the first one, and everything we learn in this lab is gonna be used throughout the semester. So the rest of the labs won't be this long. But anyway, you're just gonna read through all this. Yeah, I know you can't read it here. I made this document to where there's a lot of other links. Like click this and read this if you want to. Like this one, I think, what's that say, Randall? Does that one say not required? Yeah. So some of these things you don't have to read, and it'll say right next to it, not required, right? So if you don't want to read those things, you don't have to. If it doesn't say not required, you should read it. And also, if you click on them, a lot of these things will give you extra credit. And again, if you need help with that, meet me and I'll help you, but I don't want to waste your time talking about it now. So scroll down a little bit, please, Randall. Once you've read all that information that says required, then it's time to do the pre-lab questions. To do the pre-lab questions, I know it's hard to read. Like, did you already answer that? Anyway, you're gonna like click in the box and type in your answer. It's that simple, right? So yeah, you go ahead and do it. We'll pretend like you're doing the pre-lab. All right, he's answering a question. And we can't see what you write anyway, so it doesn't matter. There we go. He's answered the question. Now, if you scroll down, let's pretend like he finished the whole pre-lab right there. This is the last question of the pre-lab. And it'll even say this is the last question of the pre-lab. So you need to read the whole lab so you're familiar with what's going to happen when you come in. But this right here, that's the end of what is due technically today, but I'm extending it to Sunday. Does all that make sense? All you need to do is the pre-lab. The rest of it's not going to be filled out. We'll do that in lab on Wednesday. So everybody is clear on that, right? That's all you need to do for the pre-lab. Now, once you're done with it, now it's time to submit it. So Randall, if you can go back up to file, and you guys in the middle row, this is where you were having problems based on what I was hearing from you. You're going to go to download. That it? Yep. Wait, and then you're going to download it as a PDF. Of course, that's really hard, but there you go. Now it is a PDF. He has downloaded it as a PDF. And make sure you guys understand that, because I know some of you had questions. So you good there?
Yeah.
All right. So now he has that PDF on his computer. Now, granted, he can't edit that PDF, but that's what he's going to upload. He still has this original document that he copied, right? That's what he's going to access on Wednesday. But now he has what he needs to turn in for the pre-lab. That PDF, yes, it has everything else that hasn't been filled out yet, but that's okay as long as he's filled out the pre-lab. So now, Randall, if you can go back up to the lab on WVSU Online, and obviously this isn't actual, or it could be a pre-lab, but anyway, let's pretend like he is actually done with his pre-lab and he is actually submitting it. So if you scroll down to the bottom, add submission. There you go, and then there should be a way to upload a file. It's hard for me to read this. Still loading. There we go. Yeah. See, around here, there should be a way to upload the file. Of course, if you're following along right now, this is probably at this point, you should probably not be doing this because you probably haven't done that yet. But there you go. So he's uploading the file. All of this is pretty straightforward. He's going to choose this file. And then once it's up there, it's being a little slow, I think. But anyway, once it's ready, then he just hits upload this file. There we go. Now wait, there might be a submit button. See again, I've never seen this. There you go. Save changes maybe. Because as a professor, I don't have, it doesn't look like this to me. I think that's it. If you scroll down, does it give you any kind of thing like, yeah, good. It tells you it's great. So that's it. That's how you're going to do the pre-lab. And even though I've just taught you how to do it, don't feel bad if you still need help and want to meet me for office hours. Like, can you go through that again When we do it one-on-one, don't feel bad. I'm here to help you. Now, let's pretend it's Wednesday. So Randall, if you could X out of those documents. And now, Randall, let me ask you this. I'll tell you something. So on my Google Drive, I've got some sensitive information that I don't want people seeing. So I would try not to show my Google Drive to the class. So when I ask him this, don't feel like I'm being cozy. But is everything okay on your Google Drive? Are you okay with displaying it?
So, Google Drive? I
Yeah,
don't think I did anything. I got it.
I've got some stuff I wouldn't want people seeing. But anyway, so if that's the case, if you go back up to your browser up here, just open up a new tab. So again, let's pretend like this is Wednesday at 9 a.m. and we're doing the lab. So now he needs to have access. This is interesting. Oh yeah, this works. This is Google, right? Google Chrome?
Microsoft.
It should still work. That's okay. That'll work. So anyway, now we're in lab. He needs to actually do the lab. So obviously he needs access to that document again. He's already uploaded a PDF, but he needs the original document. So for Google Chrome, there's this, but it'll be on this side, right? But anytime you log in, hopefully this will work. If you go here, no, that doesn't work. All right, so yeah, if you type in this case, maybe just search Google Drive, excuse me. Okay, if I found that, and it should bring him to his Google Drive. Now, if you use Google Chrome, which is what I recommend, it's a little bit easier. Sign in, yep. It should automatically be signed in since I've seen you open the documents. Looks like it's going slowly. While we're waiting, the next word for attendance is slow, since the internet's being slow. All right. So anyway, look, now he has a drive. Now he's ready to work on the lab. He already has it, so he just click on it. If that's the same one he was working on, I think it is. Just double click on it to open it. Oh, it is. It's being slow. Yeah. Anyway, and that's it, right? Now he's gonna have that document again. He's gonna fill out the rest of the lab worksheet because we're in lab, and then just like we did for the pre-lab, once again, well, we're gonna walk through it again. It'll just be really slow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe we won't waste your time with this then. So again, he's going to open up that document that he's already pre-filled out with the pre-lab, right? He's already started it. Once it's open, he's going to answer the rest of the questions in lab itself. Then he's just going to go through the same procedure as he did for the pre-lab. He's going to save it as a PDF again, right? Then he's going to go and upload it to WBSU Online. Make sense? All right. I will mention this too. The only thing I was hoping to show you, but it's being so slow, I might not be able to show you. The only catch is when you upload the entire lab instead of just the pre-lab, you need to delete the pre-lab file first, right? You've already deleted you've already uploaded the pre-lab file. So you'll need to delete that one before you upload the lab. Does that make sense? Everybody good, right? Okay. The biggest mistake I see, and it doesn't really hurt your grade, but it seems like it'd be a real pain in the rear for some of you guys. Sometimes people will, they'll make a copy for the pre-lab and do the pre-lab, and then all right, I've got to do it again for the lab. And then they'll open up and start a whole new copy for the actual lab. And you don't need to. Once you make yourself that one copy, it's always on your Google Drive. You never need to make yourself another copy. And that's it. So Randall, I guess you can quit sharing your screen. Yeah, that's it. Now we can go back into talking about the chapter 1. And get this where I need it, and then we'll get started. And again, I want to remind, now this is the full screen I wanted. Now we'll do whatever when we don't need it. Oh, man. So anyway, again, like I said, even though I just went and showed you how to do it, if you need help doing it, let me know. And obviously, we just recorded that, so you'll always have access to it. If you want to watch the video at a later date. So let's jump back into chapter 1. And again, I'm going to do some more reminders. Does anybody have any announcements before we get started? Any announcements or reminders? Anything about your business or extracurricular activities you want everybody to know? Okay. Oh yeah, speaking of extracurriculars, I wish I would have told you guys this earlier. I didn't think of it until yesterday. If you went to State Stroud yesterday and you have any pictures of you there as proof, you can email those to me.
Gotcha.
And then that'll be extra credit. You get even more extra credit if you post it to social media and all that, but we'll worry about that later. If you just email it to me, when I email you back, I'll tell you how to do, how to get more extra credit for it. For the rest of this semester, you can just assume I'm probably gonna do that. So if you find yourself at any WVSU official WVSU event that you don't have to be at, right? So if you play football and you're at the game, that doesn't count, for example. But for anything you don't have to be at, that you just go ahead and take a picture of yourself after the event, because most likely I will give you extra credit for it. Even if I didn't announce it, you could say, hey, you know, the band had an event here and I went to watch them and I have proof with this picture. Like, oh, all right, there's some extra credit for that. So even if I don't announce it, just imagine, you know, keep in mind, back in your mind, if you go to a WVSU official event, then I'll probably give you extra credit for it. Anyway, here we go. Back at it. I don't want to remind you too, hopefully I'm not talking at you. I want to have more discussion than a lecture, but let's jump into it. We've already talked about the pre-lab. Technically it's due tonight by midnight, but because I just now showed you how to do it, I'm extending the due date until Sunday. Again, if you need my help, let me know. Even though like you do the pre-lab on your own and turn it in before the lab, you don't have to do it on your own. I'm willing to get online with you and just sit there while you do it. Like you're reading it, just and not even help you until you say, hey, can you help me with this? And I can help you with it. So let me know. Discussion, I already talked about that. They are now officially extra credit. Technically, the due date for the initial post is due tonight, or excuse me, Sunday night. And technically, the due date for your minimum of 2 replies are due next Sunday night. But again, like I said, it's all extra credit anyway. If you do miss the due date, the only catch is I'm not guaranteeing that I'll have time to grade it. So turn it in late if you want. I might not grade it. Don't turn it in at all if you don't want, because it's extra credit now. Whatever you want to do. And again, like I've already said, starting next week, we do meet every week for that. 9 a.m. sharp in this room, 9 to 10:50. And just like I mentioned last week, you have to have done the pre-lab first. So I won't let you come into the lab if you haven't done the pre-lab on time. So in this case, by Sunday, because it's usually a team effort, right? I'm not just trying to be mean to you, but if you don't do the pre-lab, then I can assume you don't know what you're doing. And that's not fair to everyone else in the class who has to work with you. Likewise, have to be on time. 9 o'clock, I'm locking the door. So be on time. It's really not hard for you guys because really all you need to do is like lecture ends at 8:50. Go stretch your legs, use the bathroom, have a smoke, whatever it is you might do, and make sure you're back in 10 minutes, right? So it's pretty easy on a Wednesday for those of you. As long as you're here for that, you should be good. If you're gonna have a smoke, though, you know, I would recommend only tobacco. First of all, anything else on campus will be illegal. And second of all, don't come to class stoned. Or what's the word if you're smoking crack? I don't even know.
Oh,
What is it? No. All right. Anybody? Any questions about announcements or reminders? All right, let's jump back into it. This is where we left off yesterday or Wednesday. We were talking about the levels of organizations. You need to know these things. You need to know them in order. These will be on the exam. But like I said, it's a 100 level course. It's a multiple choice exam. So there will be no questions when I say list all these things in order, right? There's going to be multiple choice questions where I say which one of these is out of order, or which one of these is in order, or which one of these has something missing, or which one of these doesn't belong in this list, right? And as I mentioned on Monday, this is also kind of like a blueprint of where our semester is going to go. We're going to start next chapter learning about molecules and atoms. Then after that, you're going to learn about cells, including the organelles that make them up. And that's going to be really quick because then we're going to jump into what the cells do. So you're going to learn about, when we talk about cells, we're also going to talk about how they reproduce, how they get energy, things like that. So that'll be a big chunk of the semester. And then at the end, we're going to jump over here and talk about just a group of organisms and you get larger after that. So yeah, that's the blueprint. But let's talk about these important ones. First of all, how would you describe an atom? Because I know you can see it right there. I'll block it. If a kindergarten asked you what an atom is, what would you tell them? Or does anybody even know what an atom is? What is an atom? No guesses or no loud guesses? All right, let's talk about it. The atom is the basic unit of matter that consists of a dense central nucleus surrounded by a cloud of negatively charged electrons. For the exam, if anything, you need to know that the atom is the basic unit of matter. Yes, separately, we're going to talk about the fact that electrons are negative. But as far as any questions about what an atom is, that's what you need to know. It's the basic unit of matter. So any questions about what an atom is? All right. What happens when you bring I almost said it. So I guess that's your little hint. What happens if you bring atoms together? What is that called? If I have, for example, an oxygen atom and another oxygen atom, and I split them together, so now it's one entity that's made up of two oxygen atoms. What would you call that? I think someone said it. Don't be shy. It's molecule. All right, a molecule is made up of two or more atoms, which you do need to know for the exam. There are different types of them, as you're going to learn. There'll be a whole chapter devoted to that, but that's not going to be a test question. The book example was a phospholipid. That's what that picture is here. That's just an example. You don't need to know anything about phospholipids yet. You'll never need to recognize that picture as a phospholipid. And again, we're going to discuss all this in the next chapter. But for the exam, that first bullet point, that's what you need to know. What is a molecule? It's made up of two or more atoms. When you bring them together, two or more atoms, that's a molecule. Now, when you put a bunch of molecules together, you can have a bunch of different things. As far as biology is concerned, you'll put a bunch of molecules together to make something a little bit larger. And these things are called, well, let me see if you can guess it. These things that I'm about to ask you also make up cells. So these, the next step, the things I'm about to talk about are the things that make up cells and that do jobs within the cell. You can almost think of a cell like a factory, and every one of these things has a different job in that factory. Does anybody know what the next level of organization is? If you put a bunch of molecules together, you can make a what? And I give you a hint. It's a lot smaller than an organ.
Organelle.
Hey, here you go. Organelle. Yes, organelle is the next step. These are structures that perform functions within a cell. This particular one is a Golgi apparatus. You don't need to know anything about that yet. We'll talk about it later. It's just an example. But yes, organelles are made up of molecules. You might need to know that. They make up cells. You do need to know that. And then, of course, they are, when they make up cells, they are the structures that perform functions within a cell. And that might be worded a little bit different on the exam. They do jobs, they perform functions, whatever. They make up cells. They have a job to do. Yes, there are different types, and we'll talk about that later. Like your nucleus is an organelle. Ribosomes, which we'll talk about much later in the semester, that's an organelle. The Golgi apparatus, which you can see on the screen right now, that's an organelle. But yeah, we'll discuss that later in the semester. And I will say this too, once we're done with the chemistry portion of the semester, and we dive into cells, and I teach you about all the organelles, that's going to be a very quick lecture. And I'm not going to test you that much on it. I will expose you to all the organelles. You're going to know about all the organelles. But all the important ones, you're really going to talk about later. So when we talk about photosynthesis and respiration, you're going to learn the organelles involved with that. When we talk about cellular reproduction, you're going to learn about all the organelles that are responsible for that. So that's how that discussion is going to go. Anyway, so this one should be obvious because it's kind of right there on the screen in a way. When you put a bunch of organelles together, what do you get? Cells, good. Organ's not technically incorrect. It's just that's not the next step. So yeah, put a bunch of organelles together, you have cells, right? And one example of cells, human blood cells. That's pretty simple. Cells are made up of organelles. You need to know that. What I'm not going to test you on is this other stuff. Yes, they make up tissues, but this is not an anatomy and physiology class. We're not going to talk about tissues. Yes, there are different types of cells. we'll kind of discuss them throughout the semester, but for the most part, we're not gonna be tested, like, well, is this a blood cell or is this a, liver cell? We're not gonna have that. Again, the blood cell is just one example. You don't need to know about human blood cells necessarily. And yes, we will discuss this later in the semester. So as far as the exam is concerned, the only thing you need to know is what's circled right there. They're made up of organelles. And on a different discussion, I'll remind you when we talked about the properties of life, another thing you need to know about cells is that life is cellular, right? That was the first thing you learned about the properties of life. Life has order and it is cellular. So you do need to remember that. Any questions about cells? All right, like we already said, cells make up tissues. We're not going to learn about that in this course. So anyway, there's just an example, human skin tissue. I'm going to skip ahead because again, we're not going to talk about it. Put a bunch of tissues together, that makes up organs. Put a bunch of organs together, you get organ systems. We're not going to talk about that or get tested on that in this semester. Now, you put a bunch of organ systems together, you have organisms. And we will talk about organisms in a way. You'll see how when we get there. Maybe I'm probably not going to ask you this, but if anything, again, I would ask you what are organisms made up of? Organ systems. Now, when you get a bunch of organisms together, if they're the same species, that is called a population. I'm going to put a question mark right here because I'm not sure if I'm going to ask you that on this first exam or not. Later, at the end of the semester, you definitely need to know that. But remember, we're going from small to large, right? We started at atoms, now we're getting bigger, right? So if you put a bunch of organisms together, you get what's called a population, which is the next slide. Yeah, so I'm going to move forward. Does anybody have any questions about this slide? Sorry, about anything so far. I've been moving kind of quick to make up for the time that we spent talking about that. All right, there's no question about that. Again, if you bring a bunch of organisms together that are the same species, that's a population. So you're going to talk about the squirrels on WVSU's campus. That is a population, right? Because they're all the same species. They're in the same area. They're dealing with the same stuff. They're competing for the same resources. That's a population. Now, if you start considering the other populations on campus, like we have the population of feral cats on campus. We've got a population of oak trees, right? If you start talking about all the different populations together, that's called, excuse me, a community. So again, a population is just a bunch of the same species together. Community is looking at the same thing, but not just one species. All the different species in an area that are interacting with each other and then competing for the same resources, so on and so forth. And I'm going through this part quickly because, again, for the exam, I'm most likely not going to ask you questions about what a population is, what a community is. That's going to come later in the semester. So again, using WVSU's campus as an example, if we're talking about all the living things on campus, that's a community. All the oak trees, all the squirrels, all the fungi, all the grass, right? Every living thing on campus, we could call that a community. Now, if we're studying a community, but then we also start studying the things that affect the community, like how much sunlight does it get every day? How much rain does it get per year? What's the average temperature, throughout the year? Once you start considering non-living things that affect the living things, that's called an ecosystem. So when you're studying an ecosystem, you're just studying a community. But now, instead of just looking at the living things and how they interact with each other, you're also looking at non-living things, right? How does the climate affect those living things? How do the roads, the cars driving by the road affect those communities? And again, I'll remind you, for the exam, probably not going to ask you any questions about what a population is, what a community is, or what an ecosystem is. Of course, you do need to know them in order, right? Because I did mention that when I first started this conversation, but I'm probably not going to ask you any questions about what they are. That'll come later in the semester. So if you look at all the different ecosystems, right? So now you're not just studying one ecosystem. If you're studying all the ecosystems on Earth, this brings us to our last level of organization for now, and that is called the biosphere. Hopefully one day, maybe in your lifetime, probably not mine, maybe there'll be one more level of organization when we start considering living things that are not on Earth. right? Maybe start, like, maybe we find bacteria on Mars or something like that. That'll be, we'll have a whole extra level of organization. Hopefully we'll see it before I die, but I don't know. I haven't been feeling too good recently. Okay. All right, anyway, any questions about this? And again, I'm not gonna ask you questions about what a biosphere is. That's just part of the levels of organization. So any questions about levels of organization at all? Okay, this is the picture from your old textbook. It's just everything again. It just starts really big and gets really small, right? So the biosphere, the ecosystems, communities, populations, organisms, organ systems, and organs, tissues, cells, organelles, molecules, and atoms. So again, know these, know them in order, you know, whether it's from big to small or from small to big, know them in order. And again, the only ones you need to know a little bit about are molecules and atoms, right? Organelles, cells, and then skip ahead. No, that's it, right? Because I'm probably, again, I'm not going to ask you what an organism is, what a population is, or a community, or ecosystems or biosphere. That comes later. Know them in order, forward to back, and you should be good. So any questions about that? All right, next in your chapter is something called the diversity of life. But before we get that, we're diving a little bit more into biology itself from that scope, you know, from this idea of this diversity of life. Biology is very broad in scope. That will not be a question on the exam, just letting you know. And it really is. For example, you know, I got my thesis in, I was working on proteins, RNA, things we're going to learn about later. So very much, I was working on genetic stuff in the laboratory. That was, you know, and I know a lot about the stuff that I worked on. But just because I learned biology doesn't mean I know all of biology and I'm a great expert at it. Right? If you take me to Nebraska and we go looking for insects, you're like, what kind of insect is this? Like, I don't know. That's not what I studied, right? So biology is very broad. Biology also studies a very tremendous diversity of life. So again, and that's not going to be a test question. This is, again, more like a preview to what we're going to talk about this semester. So that's not a test question. But yeah, there's a tremendous diversity of life, right? Everything from tiny single-celled bacteria to huge things like blue whales, right? And again, not a test question. Just talk about what we're going to talk about in this semester. The source of this diversity is evolution. That will be a test question later in the semester when we learn about evolution. For now, this is just a preview of what the semester is about. But it's something to keep in mind throughout the semester, and I'll bring up evolution throughout the semester. But you learn how, for example, molecules affect evolution, or how evolution can affect molecules, whatever it may be. And that'll be a common theme throughout the semester. Anyway, any questions about this slide? As far as the exam is concerned, it's a very unimportant slide. I'm just teaching out of the textbook, trying to keep it in order. And again, it's a good preview of what we're going to talk about throughout the semester. All right, the next word for evolution, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to circle it. Did I just say it? Yeah. Sorry. Barely had any of my coffee. I'm still waking up. So yeah, the next word for evolution is circle it. The next word for attendance is evolution. And I've said it now 1.5 times and so there you go. So if you're watching the video at a later date, your screenshot should show a picture of the word evolution circled. Anyway, let's move on. So it's talking more about the diversity of life. This is something you're going to need to know later, but your textbook presented it to you right away, so I'm also presenting it right away. We can just look at it right now. There's nothing to write down. Later, you're going to need to know this. But we classify life, and we get very specific to very large. Right, so specifically, for example, we are a species, our species as humans, right? Your textbook gives an example of a dog, right? So species, Canis lupus, or yeah. Anyway, and then above that, you get the genus, then family, then order, class, phylum, kingdom, domain. Later in the semester, you're going to need to know this in order, forward and backwards. But for now, it's just an introduction. Anyway, any questions about this? All right, and to remind you, it's a 100 level class, so I like to teach out of the textbook when I can, so you can follow along in the textbook and know where I'm at in the chapter. The phylogenetic tree of life. Once again, this is something you don't need to know yet. We'll talk about it later. Basically, there's 3 domains. Well, not basically, there is. Going back up to where we left off. If you look at like all of life, everything on Earth, like you can break it down into 3 domains. And the domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. And again, later you'll need to know that. For now, we'll just say eukarya is what we belong to. So when you think about more complex life, like plants and animals, things like that, that falls under eukarya. At this level, you can just consider bacteria. They're kind of there for at this level of biology. Bacteria and archaea are basically the same. They're single-celled organisms, very similar. So as far as we're concerned, they're the same thing. But whenever you do get a test question on this, what are the 3 domains of life? Eukarya, archaea, and bacteria. And that will come later. And even then, we're not going to dig into it too much. All this information on the screen, we're definitely going to not dig into it that much. We're not going to get that detailed. But there you go. Any questions about that? All right, here's some more stuff that's out of the textbook that I'm not going to test you on. The branches of biology. Like I said earlier, biology is very broad. There's all kinds of different biology. And just because you're an expert on one doesn't mean you're an expert on the other. Here's just some examples. You don't need to write any of these down. I'm not going to test you on any of this. There's molecular biology, which you're going to learn about this semester. Microbiology. You're going to learn a few things, a couple things about microbiology. That's basically just the study of like bacteria, for example. Oh yeah, excuse me. And the molecular biology, not that you need to know it now. It's like genetics, but instead of just looking at the big picture of genetics, you're looking at how genetics works at the cellular level, right? How does DNA duplicate, things like that. Neurobiology, right? That's just the study you're talking about, the brain, nervous system, stuff like that. Paleontology. That's one most people know. Does anybody know what paleontology is? What do you think of when you think of paleontology?
Study of dinosaurs.
Yeah, basically, technically the study of fossils, which includes dinosaurs, yeah. So think of Jurassic Park when you think of paleontology. And even that, if you've seen the first Jurassic Park, there's even subdivisions there, right? So paleontology also includes paleobotany. So you're still looking at fossils, but specifically for plants. Zoology, right? Study of animals. Botany, the study of plants. Biotechnology, that's what my master's degree is. So for me, that was looking at molecular biology and looking at ways you can manipulate DNA and RNA and things like that. Ecology, even though my master's degree was in biotechnology, that's my favorite. We already talked about what an ecosystem is, but ecology is the study of that. It's studying how organisms interact with each other and how they interact with the non-living things in their environment. Yeah, so anyway, those are just examples. If you want to, I've already described these, but for extra credit papers, you could look any of these up, right? You could say, I looked it up, and according to this source, this is molecular biology, right? And just write a little bit about it and get some extra credit points. And also, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's not on this list. For example, does anybody know what entomology is? Yeah, study of insects, right? Now that, entomology is a subdiscipline of zoology. So all these things have subdisciplines. So, feel free to look it up for independent work. All right, any questions about that? Okay, the next one for the exam is also unimportant. For you, since none of you are biology majors yet, hopefully I can turn some of you to the dark side before you leave. For you, this probably won't be very important because you're not dealing with science in this setting, so you don't really maybe necessarily deal with scientific ethics, but let's talk about it. Scientists have to ensure some things. For example, they have to ensure that their efforts don't cause undue damage to humans, animals, and environments. And you don't need to write any of this down. I'm not going to test you on any of this. So there are processes, right, where scientists kind of keep each other in check, and we have a set of rules of things you need to do ethically, and again, not cause harm. Of course, not every scientist follows these rules. That's another paper you could write about. Think about some examples when scientists were unethical and did do some undue damage to humans, animals, and the environment. Especially humans, man. Back in the day, we did a lot of bad things to humans. Whether it be in the Holocaust, the doctors, the people doing experiments during the Holocaust, or otherwise. Yeah, scientists have done some bad things, but they should have ethics. Scientists need to ensure that their research and communications are free of bias. That's a huge one. Because bias in science is no good. But we'll talk about that throughout the semester. Bioethics, it's a word, I might ask you this. I'll put a question mark next to this. I might ask you the definition of bioethics. It is important. It's evolving, as you can imagine. You know, if you were to look at the rules, the bioethics from 20 years ago, there's not going to be anything about AI or CRISPR-Cas9, which is a technology where you can like snip genes out of a genome and out of one organism and put them into another, right? So technically, we have the ability right now to take the gene that makes a jellyfish glow and insert it into a human and have a glowing human. We have that technology. It would be unethical to do it, but we have the technology. And again, the rules changed. There probably would have been no rule for that 20 years ago because we couldn't have done it 20 years ago. And obviously the bioethics defines the guidelines, all these rules that I'm talking about. And usually, actually, you know what? Go ahead and get rid of this. I'm definitely not going to ask you any questions about bioethics now that I think about it. And then finally, bioethics unfortunately came after unethical practices. This is something I heard in the Marine Corps a lot. Every rule is written in blood, meaning if there's a rule for it, that's because someone already did something wrong. And someone's like, oh, we better not let that happen again. But anyway, any questions about bioethics or scientific ethics in general? You can see the book for some examples. Again, I'm not going to test you. All right, moving forward. That brings us to 1.2. This is good. I was hoping we could finish chapter 1 by this week. I don't think we're going to be able to, but we can at least get into the next section. The next section, again, who remembers what biology is? Because you're going to need to know this for the exams. What is the definition of biology? You need to know it for the exam. And I'll give you a hint. It's probably a lot like what you heard your whole life growing up, with one small word added to it. Good. It's the science that studies life, right? It's the study of life, but with science, right? The scientific study of life. So like I said at the very beginning of this discussion, when I said this is the definition of biology, the science that studies life, I said, well, in that case, then what is science and what is life? We're now done talking about what life is. So now we're talking about what is science. So let's talk about the process of science. This might be a little bit harder for you to read, but here are the objectives. The first one, by the end of this, you should be able to identify the shared characteristics of the natural sciences. Probably not going to ask you any questions about that on the exam, though. You should be able to understand the process of scientific inquiry. You definitely need to know that. And we're going to be doing it all throughout the semester when we do labs. It's going to be scientific inquiry. You're going to need to be able to compare inductive reasoning with deductive reasoning. A lot of people find that a little bit confusing. In my opinion, in a 100 level class for people who are not going to be biologists, it's not very important. We will cover it, we'll discuss it. There might be 1 or 2 questions about it on the exam, but that'll be it. In my opinion, again, I don't think it's that important. And then finally, at the end of this, you should be able to describe the goals of basic science and applied science. And that's actually pretty simple. And yes, there might be like a question or 2 about that on the exam. So first of all, here we go. How would you describe or define science? Anybody want to venture a guess on that? What is science? Nothing? That's okay. All right. Science, this is from your textbook, it gathers knowledge about the natural world. Or another way to describe it, this is one of those few times when I'm teaching out of the textbook, so know this, write this down if you need to. Science is the inquiry-based effort to describe and explain nature. That's from the old textbook, and I kept it because I think it's better than just saying gathers knowledge about the natural world. That is true. Science does gather knowledge about the natural world. But I think a better way of describing it, it's like how, right? The one that I want you to know, the one in bold, it's kind of saying the same thing, but it's a little bit more descriptive. You're gathering knowledge by doing an inquiry-based effort to describe and explain the natural world, right? Meaning, you're asking questions and you're trying to answer them. Because think about it, technically, when you woke up today, and came to class, whether you walked or drove, your eyeballs were open. You were seeing and observing things, and those things were going into your memory. So technically, you were gathering knowledge about the natural world just by living in the natural world. But that doesn't mean you were doing science, right? Because you weren't, well, you may have been, but you weren't necessarily asking questions and trying to answer those questions about the things that you're seeing in nature. Science is also consists of discoveries that are made by a community of researchers, and it's a social enterprise. That's important to know in general, but not for the exam. Meaning that, scientists generally don't work alone. Even if they do work alone, the work they're doing is built off of work that somebody's done before them, right? This is a social enterprise, science. The methods include observations, record keeping, logical and mathematical reasoning, experimentation, and submitting conclusions to the scrutiny of others. We'll talk more about that bullet point and break it down into smaller bullet points later. So for now, I'm going to put an X next to it, meaning that particular bullet point, the way it's written, there'll be no test questions on it. So we're going to talk about all these things. But again, for the exam, and I hate to teach to the exam, but this is a 100 level class. Just know this for the exam. Inquiry-based effort to describe and explain nature. Does anybody know where the word science comes from? Like what it means? Is it a German word? Is it a British word? Is it a Spanish word? Is it a Latin word? Is it a Greek word? Anybody know? Not that you need to. Your textbook tells you. You don't need to know this. The scientia, meaning knowledge. It means knowledge, which is funny because it's more than just knowledge, like I was mentioning earlier. Just because you know something, unless you're trying to figure something out, it's not necessarily science. And again, your textbook provides a different definition of science, and this is the other one. It's defined as the knowledge about the natural world. So just go ahead and just in case, know both of those definitions. The one I gave you in the last slide, the one that did come from the textbook, as well as this one that did come from the textbook. Knowledge about the natural world. Science requires observations that can be confirmed and measured. I'm going to talk a lot about that. As far as the exam is concerned, that's not an important bullet point. It's kind of really straightforward. Not going to be really a question on it, but it's so important. Requires observations that can be confirmed and measured. And later, I'll give an example of why, talk about Bigfoot, for example, is not science yet. Because it can't be confirmed. Like if I were to make a claim, Bigfoot does not exist. That's not a scientific claim because I can't confirm that Bigfoot does not exist. Now, if someone said Bigfoot exists, that's science. But then they have to come up with observations, and they have to be able to confirm that Bigfoot exists. You can confirm something exists, but you can't confirm that nothing exists. Anyway, likewise, the second bullet point here, or third, science is subjected to repeated testing. That's again not important for the exam, but very important for just the world in general. So it's not like when a scientist comes up with something like, "Hey, we figured out how mRNA vaccines work." It wasn't like that, right? They had to do a lot of repeated testing. And they still do repeated testing. And then this last point kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's some things that science cannot do. Science cannot be applied to purely moral questions, right? Like, is this good or bad? And again, if you had my environmental biology class, or if you have it in the future, there's a lot of talk about that. Like, should we do this or should we do that? Science can't answer that. That's a moral question. Aesthetic questions, right? You can't say, "Oh, this song is better than that song," right? That's something science can't talk about. That's aesthetics. That's opinion. Or spiritual questions. So again, all that stuff is very important for what science is. For the exam, the only important thing is this first bullet point right here. It's defined as knowledge about the natural world. This is almost a great place to stop. Does anybody have any, almost, but not quite. Does anybody have any questions about this slide? All right. So there's a process of science, and you're going to need to know that. And before I teach you the whole process of science and all the different steps, there's some words you need to know, and that's what these are. If you do the discussion, some of these words might be in the discussion: the hypothesis, scientific theory, scientific laws. There will be questions about this on the exam. So when we come back on Monday, we'll discuss all of these. The last word for attendance, well, second to last word for attendance is going to be, here we go, I'm gonna circle it this time without saying it. That's the last word, second to last word for attendance, the word that is circled on the screen. And of course, like I said at the beginning of the lecture, the last word for attendance, the phrase for attendance is going to be send me a question. Ask me a question about any of the material covered in today's lecture, and that's it. I'll either see you on Monday or during office hours. You guys have a great weekend.